Sagittarius, 3 events are coming that will change everything. 2 goodbyes and a reunion. Sun, moon, or rising. If you're reading these words, it's not by chance. It's because the winds of destiny are already moving through your life, gently sweeping away what no longer fits and calling in a future you've secretly known was on its way. In the days ahead, 3 significant events are preparing to unfold for you. 2 goodbyes and 1 powerful reunion. These are not random occurrences. They are sacred shifts, orchestrated by the universe to align you with the person you are now ready to become. Even before they arrive, you may already feel the subtle signs. Restlessness, an ache to leave, an unfamiliar lightness as you walk away from something that once felt essential. You're not imagining it. You are sensing the first waves of change, and your intuition, always a compass, is alert and alive. This message was channeled specifically for Sagittarius souls who are being called into a higher timeline. You have carried freedom in your bones and vision in your spirit. But now, Spirit wants you not just to seek but to become. If these words stir something within you, let them land gently. And if you feel moved, consider liking, subscribing, or sharing this message from Zodiac Wisdom with others on the same path. Now let's enter this sacred story together. The universe is preparing to say goodbye so it can say something far more powerful. Welcome back. Gate 1. The first goodbye, releasing what's no longer true. Sagittarius, the first goodbye coming into your life is not meant to hurt you. It's meant to liberate you. It's a farewell you've sensed for a while now. You've felt it in the form of quiet dissatisfaction, a soft tightening in your chest when you walk into a certain room, a growing dissonance between who you are and the space you're still trying to fit into. This goodbye is not dramatic, but it's deeply significant. It may be a job where you no longer feel seen, a relationship that quietly chips away at your spirit, or even a circle of friends who don't recognize your growth. You've tried to stay. You've tried to make it work. And that is beautiful, your loyalty, your optimism, your belief that everything can be transformed if only you give it enough love. But now, Spirit is stepping in. Because staying in a place where your wings are clipped is not loyalty. It's self-abandonment. Let me tell you about Jared, a Sagittarius sun and rising. For years, he worked at a marketing agency where he was well-liked, dependable, and the fun one. But deep down, he felt unseen. He had bigger visions, creative projects, travel experiences, a desire to start his own company. Still, he stayed because it was comfortable, secure, predictable. One morning, after yet another overlooked pitch and another weekend spent working late for someone else's dream, he heard a quiet voice during meditation. "You've outgrown this." First, he resisted. The idea of leaving without a perfect plan terrified him. But over the weeks that followed, synchronicities began to unfold. A former mentor offered freelance work. An old friend invited him to join a startup. Opportunities began to appear the moment he stopped gripping so tightly. 6 months later, Jared had not only launched his own business, he had also traveled to 3 countries, published a short story, and built a new community that fed his soul. The goodbye wasn't easy, but it was everything. Sagittarius, this is what Spirit wants you to know. You don't have to justify the feeling that you've outgrown something. You don't need permission to leave a place that no longer honors the vastness of your spirit. You are not selfish for choosing growth. You are not wrong for wanting more. The universe is already moving behind the scenes. Perhaps you'll be offered a different path. Maybe someone will pull away first, or a sudden event will make the decision clearer. These are not accidents, they are orchestrations. Spirit is creating the perfect circumstances so that your exit will feel less like a leap and more like a natural unfolding. Still, there will be a moment when the choice is yours. Will you hold on out of fear? Or will you trust the invitation to rise? As a Sagittarius, you carry a fire that cannot be extinguished. But fire, when kept too long in a small space, becomes smoke. You need room. You need movement. You need air. That first goodbye is making space for oxygen again. Here's what you may notice as this goodbye approaches: a growing feeling of restlessness, even in places that once comforted you. A sense of being out of place without knowing why. Unexpected tension in relationships where you once felt ease. A subtle grief for something that hasn't ended yet, but already feels gone. Do not dismiss these signs. They are sacred signals. They are how your soul whispers, "It's time." And yet, I know how hard goodbyes can be for you. While others may see you as a free spirit, Your heart is deeply loyal. You believe in giving people second chances. You stay even when your flame dims, because you want to see the best in others, because you hope perhaps they will rise with you. But sometimes, dear one, the most loving thing you can do is walk away with grace. Not in bitterness, not in anger, but with quiet certainty that you are choosing alignment over attachment. This kind of departure doesn't have to be loud. It can look like updating your resume, having an honest conversation, clearing out your calendar, saying no without apology, saying yes without needing to explain. You may worry about what others will think, but this path isn't for them. It's for you. Remember, it's not weakness to walk away from what's misaligned. It's wisdom. Here are some healing invitations to guide you through this goodbye. Write a release letter. Sit down and write a letter to the situation or person you're releasing. Say what you've loved. Say what you've learned. Say goodbye, even if only on the page. Then burn it or bury it as a ritual of completion. Create a freedom list. Write down all the things that will become possible once this door fully closes. How will your days feel? What kind of space will open in your mind, your schedule, your soul? Anchor in your why. When fear creeps in, return to your why. Ask yourself, what part of me is finally asking to be heard? Trust that answer. Find your witness. Share your truth with someone safe. A coach, a spiritual guide, a friend who honors your process. Not for advice, but for affirmation. Walk away gracefully. When the time comes, choose closure over chaos. You don't need to burn bridges. You only need to walk through the gate that's opening for you. Sagittarius, this first goodbye is not a loss. It is a reclamation. It's the version of you who whispers, "We were never meant to stay small." It's spirit saying, "I've got more for you if you'll trust me." You don't have to leap blindly, but you do have to listen. Listen to the ache. Listen to the joy that flickers when you imagine something else. Listen to your own expanding heart, because what's waiting for you on the other side of this goodbye is not emptiness. It's alignment. It's clarity. It's the life you were always meant to live. Gate 2. The second goodbye. Letting go of the old self. Sagittarius, the second goodbye is more subtle and more sacred. This one doesn't involve walking away from people or places. It asks something even braver, that you release a version of yourself that no longer aligns with your becoming. You know this version well. It's the one who made herself smaller to keep the peace. The one who dimmed his ideas so others wouldn't feel threatened. The one who apologized for wanting too much, dreaming too loudly, hoping too hard. And now that version is quietly fading. At first, you may not recognize what's happening. You might feel irritable, lost, or restless. You may sense a tug-of-war inside you, as if you are being split between the past and the future. But that tension is not dysfunction, it's transformation. This is the moment when your soul says, "We can't pretend anymore." Let me share a story with you. Nadia, a Sagittarius with her moon in Pisces, came to me mid-breakdown. She had spent years in a spiritual community where she was respected, even loved, but not truly seen. Her voice was soft, always measured, always thoughtful. But beneath that composure, she was boiling. She wanted to teach, to write, to lead. But every time she tried, an old voice in her head whispered, "Don't outshine others. Don't be too much. Don't rock the boat." That voice belonged to a younger version of her. A girl who learned early on that shining could make others uncomfortable. Nadia realized she had wrapped herself in humility so tightly, it had become a cage. The breakthrough came not in a dramatic exit, but in a quiet moment at her altar. She whispered aloud, "I forgive the version of me that thought hiding was the only way to be safe." And with that, the unraveling began. She started speaking more boldly, teaching online. Her first video reached thousands. The fear didn't vanish overnight, but her alignment grew stronger than her fear. Sagittarius, this second goodbye is about shedding the skin that no longer fits. Not because it was wrong, but because it has served its purpose. Growth requires space, and you cannot rise while dragging an outdated identity behind you. This version of you, the one you're releasing, may have been helpful once, got you through hard times, and knew how to survive. But now you are ready to thrive. Here's how you might notice this second goodbye in your life. A growing discomfort with roles you once played with ease. realizing you've been shrinking your joy, your magic, or your opinions, feeling disconnected from your old habits, yet unsure of the new ones. A strong inner urge to speak up, show up, or break a silence you've lived within for too long. You may grieve this version of yourself, and that's okay. Say thank you to them. They carried you through a chapter you didn't know how to survive, but they cannot lead you into your next one. And now Spirit asks, are you ready to love yourself without condition? To step fully into your bold, unfiltered truth? You may feel resistance, a whisper of, who am I to do this? But the real question is, who are you not to? Sagittarius, you were never meant to blend in. You were born to blaze trails, to ask the big questions, to be a mirror of possibility for others. You don't have to apologize for your depth, your bigness, your brilliance. This second goodbye is not about arrogance, it's about authenticity. It is not ego to know your worth, it is wisdom. Here are soulful invitations for this phase of inner release. Name the version you're releasing. Write a letter to the you that you're letting go. What did they teach you? What were they afraid of? What are you now ready to carry forward instead? Witness your expansion. Make a list of moments recently where you felt a spark of new identity. When you said something you would have once hidden, or dared something you used to fear. Embody your becoming. Choose one symbolic action that aligns with who you are becoming. A new style. A different tone in your emails. Saying no with confidence. Claim your truth in the physical realm. Create a ceremony of shedding. Light a white candle. Sit in silence. Visualize your old self as a gentle mist, rising and dissolving. Say aloud, I honor who I was. I now welcome who I am becoming. Anchor an affirmation. Speak this to yourself each morning. I no longer need to shrink to be loved. I am safe to shine. Sagittarius, this second goodbye is a rebirth. It is the inner cracking that happens when the seed becomes the sprout. You may feel exposed at first, tender, but soon that vulnerability becomes power. Not the loud kind, the rooted kind, the kind that doesn't waver when others question it. And what follows this release is lightness. You will feel yourself move differently in the world. You will laugh more freely, speak more boldly, rest more deeply. You won't need to defend your worth, because you'll embody it. This is the true freedom Sagittarius has always longed for. Not just to roam the world, but to be fully at home within yourself. Let this second goodbye be a sacred act of love, not a rejection of who you were, but a rising into who you already are beneath the armor. Spirit is clearing the path inside you, so that when the reunion arrives, it finds a heart ready to receive. Gate 3, the reunion meeting the soul mirror. Sagittarius, after the release comes the arrival. After the unraveling, the encounter. And this reunion, is unlike anything you've experienced before. It is not loud. It does not announce itself with flashing signs or thunderclaps. It arrives softly, precisely, in the space you've just made inside your soul. This is a reunion with someone, yes, but more deeply, it is a reunion with a part of yourself long forgotten. The encounter is not accidental. It is Spirit's answer to the space you cleared when you said goodbye. And like all soul-level meetings, it carries a strange, immediate recognition. You won't know them by their face or words, but by their frequency, by the way your nervous system relaxes in their presence, the way your laughter sounds freer, the way your thoughts begin to align more clearly just being near them. It could be a mentor, a creative collaborator, a spiritual friend, or even a new love. But the essence of this meeting is the same. It reflects back the energy of who you are becoming. You will know it's them because something inside you settles. Not into comfort, but into clarity. Let me tell you about Celine, a Sagittarius sun who had just left a long-term role at a nonprofit. For months, she wandered without direction. She tried a few projects, went on several solo trips, but nothing clicked. One rainy morning at a quiet bookstore in Prague, she struck up a conversation with an older woman named Isla. They were browsing the same poetry shelf. A few exchanged thoughts turned into an hour-long discussion on meaning, purpose, and how the soul finds its true name only after loss. Celine cried for the first time in months, and through that connection, short but eternal, she remembered what she had almost forgotten. Her gift wasn't just in doing good. It was in making people feel seen. Isla handed her a notebook before parting and said, You've got a voice that remembers the truth for others. Use it. That night, Celine wrote the first pages of her memoir. Sagittarius, this person you are about to meet may not stay in your life forever, but they will leave a permanent imprint on your path. They are the lighthouse you didn't know you needed, arriving at the very moment your boat stopped searching. Their words will align with your questions. Their energy will echo your emerging power. And through them you will gain not just affirmation but activation. For some Sagittarians, this encounter will relate to career. A chance conversation that leads to recognition, a new opportunity, or an unexpected collaboration that lights a creative fire you thought had gone out. For others, especially those born closer to December, the connection will be personal, deeply emotional, touching themes of worth, intimacy, and spiritual belonging. It may feel like destiny because, in many ways, it is. But destiny does not mean permanence. It means precision. This soul has been assigned to you, not to complete you, but to remind you that you are already whole. When this person arrives, your mind may resist. You might think, this is too good, too easy, too fast. Sagittarius, your independent nature has taught you to distrust ease, to prefer the climb. But not all growth comes through struggle. Some of the most powerful shifts happen through connection, through reflection, through being received. Allow yourself to be received. That's where the alchemy lives. This encounter won't require you to be anyone but yourself. In fact, the more honest you are, the deeper the connection will go. There's no need to posture, to impress, or to prepare. Spirit has already prepared you. Through every goodbye, every release, every unraveling, you are ready now to meet what matches your frequency. And here's the most tender truth. This meeting is not a reward. It's a mirror. It shows up now because you finally see yourself clearly enough to recognize what reflects you. And what a beautiful thing that is, to finally be met in the same depth you offer others. To speak and not be edited. To dream and not be diminished. To feel without apologizing. Sagittarius, you have often walked alone, not because no one wanted to walk beside you, but because your soul was still becoming. Now the frequency has changed. You have changed. And so the universe sends in someone who hears your rhythm and responds without resistance. This encounter will mark a turning point. Not in what you do, but in how you move through the world. You will find yourself making braver choices. You will stop seeking validation and begin trusting your own knowing. You will let go of striving and start allowing. Not because someone else told you who you are, but because they reminded you of what you already knew. And when you part ways, whether after a moment or a lifetime, you will not mourn. You will give thanks. Because they came when you needed to remember your own power. And they helped you open the door you were always meant to walk through. Sagittarius, the reunion is real. It's close. It may happen in a coffee shop, at a train station during a Zoom call, or at a random gathering you almost skipped. But you will know it by how it makes you feel alive. Certain. Ready. So when the moment arrives, don't overthink it. Don't run from the recognition. Look them in the eyes and say yes. Say yes to the meeting. Yes to the message. Yes to what is unfolding. Because this, dear Sagittarius, is not just about who you're meeting. It's about who you're becoming because of it. And that version of you, the one who sees clearly, speaks freely, loves courageously, is the one Spirit has been calling home all along. Gate 4. The spiritual awakening, embracing inner peace after the storm. Sagittarius, what happens after transformation? After the goodbyes and the soul-shaking reunion? After the fire, the flood, the emotional currents that left you gasping and awakened? Something quieter but no less miraculous. Something deeper. You arrive at a moment that doesn't ask you to move, but to rest. Not to chase clarity, but to recognize that it's already within you. This is not a pause. This is a spiritual awakening. It often begins not with revelation, but with silence. The silence that follows a storm. The kind of silence that feels unnerving at first because you've become so used to fighting, striving, becoming. But now there is nothing left to prove. And that can feel like unfamiliar ground for a soul who has always looked to the next peak, the next lesson, the next open road. But Sagittarius, this stillness is not emptiness. It's sacred space, a clean canvas, a breath drawn all the way in. This is the moment Spirit asks you, what does peace feel like in your body? What if you no longer had to earn your right to joy? You've learned to let go. You've learned to listen. You've learned to love without shrinking. And now the lesson is simpler but just as profound. Can you allow yourself to be? Can you trust that you are whole even when you're not striving to grow? That your worth is intact even when no one is watching? That your presence alone is already a blessing? Let me tell you about Matteo, a Sagittarius rising who had spent the last decade teaching yoga around the world. Always on the move, always seeking deeper purpose. After experiencing his own 3 events, a career collapse, a breakup, and the unexpected arrival of a mentor who helped him reframe his life, he found himself back in his childhood town for the first time in years. First he felt lost, like he had failed, but then something strange happened. He stopped resisting the quiet. He walked old trails. He cooked meals slowly. He started writing poetry again. Not for anyone else but for himself. One afternoon, sitting by a lake, he felt a wave of emotion that had no name, only presence. That was the moment, he told me. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was healing anymore. I felt healed. Sagittarius, awakening is not dramatic. It is spacious. It is when you stop chasing the light and realize you are the flame. It is when your body softens for no reason. When you laugh to yourself without needing company. When you drink tea and feel like it matters. This is not spiritual laziness, it is integration. Your soul, having been stretched and tested, is now settling into its new shape. And in that settling, you begin to see the world differently. You start to notice beauty more easily. You respond instead of reacting. You feel not to control but to witness. And most of all, you stop outsourcing your peace. This kind of peace doesn't mean life becomes easy or perfect, but it means your center no longer depends on external conditions. Your truth, once something you chased across landscapes and philosophies, is now an inner frequency that you can return to any time. Even when storms return, and they always will, you'll know how to sit with them, how to hold your ground, how to open the windows of your spirit and let the light back in. Spiritual awakening is not about never hurting again. It's about knowing you will never abandon yourself again. And that knowing changes everything. So if you've been wondering why you feel unusually calm, strangely nostalgic, or even gently emotional, it's because something inside you has shifted. Not broken, not collapsed, but softened. Sagittarius, your fire has matured. You no longer burn to survive. You burn to illuminate. And now, after all the releasing and rising, Spirit offers you this final gift. The ability to live your truth quietly, consistently, joyfully, without needing anyone to confirm that it matters. You no longer have to prove your worth. You are your worth. And with that, the 4th gate opens not into action but into being. Let this be your homecoming. Let this be your new kind of freedom. Let this be your peace. Conclusion, Sagittarius, this is your becoming. Sagittarius, you've traveled far in this sacred reading. Not through maps or mountains, but through the terrain of your soul. You've walked the path of 2 goodbyes. One to a life that no longer honors you, and another to a version of yourself that kept you safe but small. And then came the reunion. A soul mirror that reminded you of your own brilliance, your purpose, your truth. Finally, you stepped through the last threshold into peace. Not because everything outside of you changed, but because everything inside of you aligned. This, dear Sagittarius, is not just a season. It is a becoming. You are not the same soul who began this message. You have remembered your essence. You have reclaimed your light. And now you walk forward not in search of truth, but as the embodiment of it. From this moment on, may you trust your timing. May you know that goodbyes are not losses but clearings. That reunions are not distractions but confirmations. That your path, however winding, is always leading you home to yourself. And if this message felt like truth in your bones, if it mirrored something you hadn't yet put into words, consider sharing it. Like it. Subscribe to Zodiac Wisdom if you haven't already. These messages don't just reach you. They ripple out into a collective of souls walking parallel journeys. You are not alone. There will be more signs, more chapters, more guidance. But for now, take a moment. Feel the ground beneath you. Inhale this stillness. Exhale every version of you that had to fight just to be enough. You made it. You are enough. And your becoming has only just begun.